At my own wedding, standing there in front of everyone I thought cared about me, my father-in-law raised his glass and said loud and proud, "He's not a real man, just a broke loser." And my wife actually laughed. Not awkwardly, not nervously. She laughed like it was the best joke she'd ever heard. Then she added, "He's lucky I even said yes." The guests, they clapped. They actually clapped. I felt like I was standing there naked, humiliated, like a stranger at my own celebration. But just as I was about to sit down and pretend like none of it mattered, I heard a chair scrape behind me. My little brother, only 14, hand shaking, stood up and said he wanted me to read this letter if they ever disrespected me. And just like that, everything changed. Growing up, I never had much, but I had my little brother and my mom. After my dad passed when I was 12, life got tough fast. We didn't have a safety net, no inheritance, no insurance. Just bills, work, and the constant hum of survival. I grew up faster than most kids. While my friends were out playing or gaming, I was packing groceries after school and making sure my little brother did his homework before bed. I didn't resent it. He looked up to me like I was some kind of superhero, and I didn't want to let him down. I met her when I was 23. We were both in our last year of college, me juggling 2 part-time jobs and barely sleeping, her gliding through campus like she had the whole world figured out. She was gorgeous, smart, funny, and so far out of my league, it felt like a mistake every time she chose to sit next to me in class. But she did, again and again. She liked my ambition, said she admired my hustle, said I made her feel grounded. And God, I wanted to believe that. I fell hard for her. I thought she saw me, not the bank account, not the job titles, just me. But her family? That was a different story. From the moment I shook her dad's hand, I knew he didn't respect me. Big name in real estate, big voice, big ego, the kind of guy who talks over everyone at dinner and measures your worth in dollars per hour. He always called me kid, even though I was 27. Constant jokes about how I was still figuring life out or how writing articles doesn't pay the bills. Her mom was a little better. Polite, smiled a lot, but it was that tight, strained kind of smile people where when they're trying not to say what they're really thinking. I kept telling myself it didn't matter. She loved me. That was enough. When I proposed, she said yes immediately. She cried. I cried. For a moment, it felt perfect. Like maybe I'd finally crossed some invisible line. Maybe I was enough. Planning the wedding was stressful. Her family had big expectations, lavish venue, designer decor, overpriced catering. I didn't want to hold her back, so I took out a personal loan to contribute. I didn't tell anyone, not even her. I just wanted to prove I could pull my weight. The morning of the wedding, I was nervous, sure, but excited. I thought I was stepping into the happiest day of my life. My little brother helped me get dressed. He straightened my tie 3 times before saying, "You look like someone from one of those movies. You know, the kind who always does the right thing." Before we left, he handed me a small white envelope. He said, "I wrote something, just in case. In case someone tries to embarrass you today. If it gets bad, you can read it. Oh, I will." I smiled, tucked it in my jacket pocket, and said, "Don't worry, buddy. Today is going to be great." I couldn't have been more wrong. The ceremony itself went smoothly, better than I expected, honestly. She looked stunning walking down the aisle, like something out of a magazine. For a while, I forgot everything else, the nerves, the tension, the way her dad had barely looked at me that morning. When we said our vows, I meant every word. I'd spent hours writing them, making sure she knew I was all in. I thought I saw something real in her eyes when she smiled at me. I held on to that. The reception was where things started to unravel. We were at this enormous estate her parents rented out. Chandeliers, white tents, live jazz band, even a custom cocktail menu. People mingled, laughed, toasted. I tried to shake off the unease building in my chest. My family sat quietly at a small table near the back. My mom, my little brother, my aunt. Surrounded by people they didn't know, watching everything with unsure smiles. They were proud of me, though I could feel it. That meant the world. Then came the speeches. She went first. Her toast was sweet, Funny, just the right touch of sentimental. I smiled the whole time. I thought, this is it. We're really doing this. Then her dad stood up. He tapped his glass 3 times. The room quieted immediately. He had that kind of presence, the kind that demands attention without saying a word. Everyone watched, waiting for the grandfather of the bride speech. He started with a joke, something about how when she first told him she was dating a writer, he assumed she meant someone important, like a novelist or a journalist with a real paper. The room laughed politely. I gave a tight smile. Okay, just a joke. Then he leaned in a little closer to the MIC and said, but when she brought him home, well, let's just say I thought it was a phase. I mean, he's not exactly what you'd call a real man. He's a dreamer, and a kind of a broke one. Laughter. Real laughter. I froze. Then, from right beside me, I heard her chuckle, loudly. She raised her glass and added, "He's lucky I even said yes." The room erupted. People clapping, grinning, looking right at me like I was supposed to laugh along. My face burned. My heart started pounding. I glanced toward my family's table. My mom looked like someone had slapped her. And my little brother, he was staring straight at me, jaw clenched. I didn't know what to do. I felt like I was sinking through the floor. This wasn't teasing. This was public humiliation. And it was happening on the most important day of my life. And the woman I loved was in on it. Then I heard it, a chair scraping back. I turned just in time to see my little brother standing, hands trembling, voice breaking. He held up the envelope he'd given me earlier that morning, and he said he wanted me to read this letter if they ever disrespected me. The laughter stopped when he stood up. The room shifted. The laughter died in an instant. All eyes were on him, the skinny 14-year-old kid with shaggy brown hair and oversized sleeves that swallowed his hands. He was shaking, but he didn't sit down. He looked straight at him, then over at her, then at me. I could barely breathe. He pulled the letter out of the envelope carefully, like it was something sacred. His voice cracked as he started reading. My name is Ben. I'm not rich. I don't come from a family with connections or fancy degrees, but I've worked since I was 13. I helped raise my little brother when our dad died. I've washed dishes, stocked shelves, cleaned offices at 3 a.m., and still found time to study, graduate, and build a life with a woman I love. People shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. Some were whispering. Others just stared. He kept going, his voice gaining strength with every line. To her family, I've always been the guy who wasn't good enough. I knew that. I felt it every time I walked into a room and got a half smile or a backhanded compliment. I stayed quiet because I thought love was enough, that proving myself through patience and hard work would eventually earn your respect. I felt my throat tighten. My heart was hammering in my chest. But if, on my wedding day, the people who were supposed to be family can't show me basic human decency, then this letter is my line in the sand. I won't let humiliation be the price I pay for being accepted. The silence was deafening. Nobody moved. Her face was frozen, like she didn't know whether to be embarrassed or angry. He looked stunned, like he hadn't expected a broke loser to have something to say. His voice shook one last time as he read the final part. Respect isn't a luxury. It's a right. And if my wife or her family thinks I'm beneath them, then I'd rather walk out of this wedding alone than spend a lifetime being someone's punchline. The room was stone-cold silent. I stood up. My legs were heavy, but my heart felt strangely light. I walked over to him, put my hand on his shoulder, and whispered, "Thank you." Then I turned to the crowd, not angry, just clear. I looked at her. Her expression was unreadable now, like she didn't know the man standing in front of her. And I said, "I loved you, but I won't spend my life with someone who laughs while I'm being torn apart." Then I reached into my pocket, took off my wedding ring, and placed it gently on the table next to her bouquet. I looked at my mom. She was crying but nodding. I looked back at him, his eyes filled with a strange mix of fear and pride, and I walked out of my own wedding. As I walked out of the reception tent, the sound of silence followed me like a shadow. No one called after me. No one tried to stop me. Not even her. The sun was starting to set, casting this warm orange light across the estate lawn. It should have been the golden hour for wedding photos, the part where we're supposed to be laughing and kissing, capturing the start of our forever. But instead, I was standing outside in a suit I could barely afford, leaving behind a room full of people who never really saw me as worthy. I heard footsteps behind me, fast and uneven. It was him. He ran up beside me, out of breath, clutching the now folded letter in one hand. I didn't know if I should read it all, he said, eyes wide, but when they laughed, I just knew I had to. I pulled him into a hug, a real one, tight, grateful. I could feel him shaking. You did the bravest thing in that room, I said. You saved me. He pulled back, teary-eyed, and asked, "What happens now?" I looked back toward the glowing tent. The music had started again, low, awkward, people pretending things were normal. She wasn't at the entrance. She hadn't followed me. That told me everything. I don't know, I said, but I'm not going to stay somewhere I'm not respected. We sat on a bench near the parking lot, quiet for a while, just watching the sky change colors. My mom eventually came out, still in her dress, heels in hand. She walked over, sat on my other side, and placed her arm around my shoulder without saying a word. After a few minutes, a few other people slipped out, some extended family, people who looked unsure, maybe even ashamed. One woman, a cousin, I think, stopped by and said quietly, "You didn't deserve that. What you wrote, it was powerful. I hope you find someone who really values it." It wasn't applause. It wasn't a crowd standing up to cheer. But it was enough, because I realized in that moment I hadn't lost anything. I'd gained clarity. Clarity about who I was and what I would no longer tolerate. She didn't text, didn't call. Not that night. Not the next day. She posted a photo on Instagram from a wedding, though cropped just enough so you couldn't tell the groom was missing. It hurt. Of course it did. But it also told me the truth I'd been too scared to admit before. She didn't see me. She saw a version of me she could mold, shape, laugh at when convenient. Someone safe to love until the image cracked, and once it cracked, she didn't want to fix it. So I left it shattered behind me and chose to walk forward, not as someone broken, but someone finally free. In the weeks after the wedding, I went through every stage of heartbreak you can imagine, confusion, anger, regret. I kept replaying the scene in my head. The laughter, the clapping, her smirk. I kept asking myself, was it really that easy for her? Did none of it mean anything? I moved back in with my mom for a while. It wasn't glamorous. My old bedroom still had a peeling poster of a 2008 basketball team on the wall. But it was safe, quiet, real. He was always around. He'd bring me tea in the mornings before school, ask if I wanted to watch dumb movies with him in the evenings. He didn't say much, but his presence meant everything. He never once treated me like I'd failed. In his eyes, I was still someone worth standing up for. That was the kind of love I needed, the kind that didn't flinch under pressure. A few weeks after everything went down, I decided to post a story online. I didn't name names. I didn't drag anyone. I just told the truth about growing up poor, about the wedding, about the letter, about the moment I walked out. Not as a victim, but as someone who finally chose self-respect over approval. I expected maybe a handful of strangers to read it. But within days, it blew up. Thousands of comments, hundreds of messages. People from all over the world thanking me for sharing what they'd never had the courage to say out loud. Men and women alike telling me, "You reminded me I don't have to settle for people who treat me like I'm less." One message stuck with me. It said, "You didn't just walk away from the wedding, you walked into your worth." That line hit me like a brick. I started writing more after that, not for clients or paycheck gigs, but for myself, about relationships, respect, masculinity, self-worth. And people responded. They felt it. It was like I'd finally found my voice, not the version I'd been quieting to fit into someone else's life. Months later, she reached out. She didn't apologize. Not really. She just said, "I didn't think you'd actually leave." That sentence told me everything I needed to know. I didn't leave because I stopped loving you. I replied, I left because I finally started loving myself. We never spoke again. Now, life isn't perfect, but it's mine. Fully, unapologetically mine. I freelance less, write more, and spend weekends helping him with his debate competitions. Last month, he gave a speech in front of his whole school, a speech inspired by that letter. He ended it with the words, "Respect is a right, not a reward." The auditorium gave him a standing ovation. I sat in the front row, clapping through tears, thinking, that's my little brother. Turns out, you don't need a wedding ring or applause from a fancy crowd to feel like a real man. Sometimes all it takes is standing up for yourself, or having someone who loves you enough to do it for you. And that's the story of how I walked out of my own wedding. Not because I stopped loving her, but because I finally started loving myself. If this hits home for you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real stories that remind us all what self-worth really looks like.